Would you stand up to an oppressive regime or would you conform? Here's the science. This is on The Conversation by Nick Charter, Professor of Behavioral Science, Warwick Business School, University of Warwick in the UK. Margaret Atwood's novel, The Handmaid's Tale, described the horror of an authoritarian regime of Gilead. In this theocracy, self-preservation was the best people could hope for, being powerless to kick against the system. But her sequel, The Testaments, raises the possibility that individuals with suitable luck, bravery, and cleverness can fight back. But can they? There are countless examples of past and present monstrous regimes in the real world, and they all raise the question of why people didn't just raise up their rulers against the rulers. Some of us are quick to judge those who conform to such regimes as evil psychopaths, or at least morally inferior to ourselves. But what are the chances that you would be a heroic rebel in such a scenario, refusing to be complicit in maintaining or even enforcing the system? To answer this question, let's start by considering a now classic analysis by American organizational theorist James March and Norwegian politician scientist Johan Elson from 2004. They argue that human behavior is governed by two complementary and very different logics. According to the logic of consequence, we choose our actions like a good economist, weighing up the costs and benefits of the alternative options in the light of our personal objectives. This is basically how we get what we want. But there is also a second logic, the logic of appropriateness. According to this, outcomes, good or bad, are often of secondary importance, and we often choose what to do by asking, what is a person like me supposed to do in a situation like this? The idea is backed up by psychological research. Human social interactions depend on our tendency to conform to unwritten rules of appropriate behavior. Most of us are truthful, polite, don't cheat when playing board games and follow etiquette. We are happy to let judges or football referees enforce the rules. A recent study showed we even conform to arbitrary norms. The logic of appropriateness is self-enforcing, we disapprove of, ostracize, or report people who lie or cheat. Research has shown that even in anonymous experimental games, people will pay a monetary cost to punish other people for being uncooperative. The logic of appropriateness is therefore crucial to understanding how we can organize ourselves into teams, companies, and entire nations. We need shared systems of rules to cooperate, and it's easy to see how evolution may have shaped this. The psychological foundations for this start early. Children as young as 3 will protest if arbitrary rules of the game are violated, and we all know how punishing it can be to stick out in a playground by violating norms of dress, accent, or behavior. Authoritarian regimes. Both logics are required to create and maintain an authoritarian regime. To ensure that we make the right personal choices, an oppressive state's main tool are carrots and sticks, rewarding conformity, punishing even a hint of rebellion. But personal gain or survival alone provides a fragile foundation for an oppressive state. It's easy to see how the logic of appropriateness fits in here, turning from being a force of cooperation to a mechanism for enforcing an oppressive status quo. This logic asks what we follow the rules and make sure others do too, often without needing to ask why the rules are the way they are. Regimes therefore supplement rewards and punishments with self-policed norms, rules, and conventions. A good party comrade or a member of a religious cult or terrorist group will learn that they are supposed to obey orders, root out opposition, and not question authority, and enforce these norms on their fellows. The authoritarian state is therefore concerned above all with preserving ideology, defining the right way to think and behave so that we can unquestionably conform to it. This can certainly help explain the horrors of Nazi Germany, showing is that it's not primarily a matter of individual evil. As the philosopher Hannah Arendt famously argued, the atrocities of the Holocaust were made possible by normal people manipulated into conforming to a horribly abnormal set of behavioral norms. Would you rebel? So how would you, or I, fare in Gilead? We can be fairly confident that most of us would conform, with more or less discomfort, finding it difficult to shake the feeling that the way things are done is the right and appropriate way. Just think of the fervor with which people can enforce standards of dress, prohibitions on profane language, or dietary norms, however arbitrary these may appear. Indeed, we may feel morally bound to protect the party, nation, or religion, whatever its character. A small number of us, however, would rebel, but not primarily. I suspect based on differences in individual moral character. Rebels, too, need to harness the logic of appropriateness. They need to find different norms and ideals shared with fellow members of the resistance or inspired by history or literature. Breaking out of one set of norms requires that we have an available alternative. And that said, some people may have more naturally nonconformist personalities than others, at least in periods of their lives. Whether such rebels are successful in breaking out, however, may partly depend on how convincingly they can justify to themselves and defend to others that we don't want to conform. So if so, we would expect a tendency to adopt non-standard norms to be linked to verbal ability and perhaps general intelligence in individuals who actually rebel, which there is some evidence to support. How we react to unfairness may also affect our propensity to rebel. One study found that people who risk-averse and easily trust others are less likely to react strongly to unfairness. While not proven in the study, it may make such individuals more likely to conform. Another factor is social circumstances. The upper and middle classes in Germany during 1920s to 1940s were almost twice as likely to join the Nazi Party than those with lower social status. So it may be that those who have the most to lose and or are keen to climb the social ladder are particularly likely to conform. And of course, if other members of your social circle are conforming, you might think it's the appropriate thing to do. Few will fight Gilead after carefully weighing up the consequences. After all, the most likely outcome is failure and obliteration. What drives forward fights against an oppressive society is a rival vision, a vision of equality, liberty, and justice, and a sense that these should be defended, whatever the consequences. This is On the Conversation, and it's by Nick Charter, Professor of Behavior Science, Warwick Business School, University of Warwick of UK. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.